welcome everybody to our session here at the UNIDO conference, which we are all very excited about, talking about female entrepreneurship and women in industry. Alpha Bakar is co-hosting this session with me, Heba Agib. Hello, Alpha. And we are starting.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this conversation with female entrepreneurs and to this extraordinary session with extraordinary participants. Welcome, Heba.
Hello. So the session is about female entrepreneurship and how achieving the SDGs is being possible through impact technologies. We are trying here today to give you a perspective and some examples and a heated conversation, I hope so, about the role of entrepreneurs in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. My name is Heba Agib. I'm Chief Executive of Respond, an accelerator program which was launched by the BMW Foundation, operated by Unternehmertum, focusing on impact tech entrepreneurship. And what drives me is how to bring impact technologies and sustainable technologies closer to impact investing and investment in general, and how to make it the new normal, so to say, or hopefully the ever normal without talking about it as new, to be scaled up globally, internationally, and accessible to everyone. Handing over to you, Alpha, to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Heba, and it's an honor to be here today. I'm Alpha Bakar. I am an international expert on access to finance and innovation and entrepreneurship for UNIDO. Basically, my job is actually to help the organization to set up innovative financial mechanism in certain of the projects across the globe, specifically in Africa, in the MENA region, and in some part of Europe. To you, Heba.
So I will shortly introduce our guests today. I will start with Lubomila. Lubomila is founder and CEO of Plan A. It's a startup concerned about monitoring and offsetting the environmental impact of companies and trying to help them using key environmental indicators to offset, calculate, monitor, and reduce their carbon footprint. Lubomila herself, she's also the co-founder of Green Tech Alliance and has been recognized in Forbes 30 under 30 and been awarded for sustainability, impact and social impact in different contexts. Hello, Lubomila. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really excited for the discussion and really honored to be part of such a wonderful group.
Thank you. And Alison is our second panelist. She's also CEO and founder of Made of Air, another startup like Plan A, is part of our 2020 Respond cohort. We're very happy to have such great female entrepreneurs in our cohort. Alison is also co-founder of Elegant Embellishment, and always concerned about interdisciplinary approach to produce and develop smart materials. And in her startup Made of Air, she's manufacturing a carbon negative material. Alison, I'll leave you the description. It's a very complex technology. I hope you tell us more about it in the next minutes, and is an expert on smart cities and had TEDx talks about ornament and climate over the past years. Hello, Alison. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Heba. It's great to be here. Thanks for the invitation. And I'm looking forward to the topics today and talking a little more about what each of us are, what's on our minds.
Great. Alpha, handing over to you.
So we have Bibuza Weissman, who is the Chief Executive Officer of and founder of Sensex Africa Limited. This is a Zambian-born communication, business development, and investment advisory expert who boasts more than 12 years of experience. She is a certified public administration expert. She has worked in various green energy, environmental projects, and other sectors. She excelled at bringing people together and developing professional relations for a successful collaboration and to achieve optimal results. In 2016, Bibi, as they call her, was awarded Pan-African and Enterprise and Youth Empowerment in Dubai. Bibuza is an international speaker who has also facilitated workshops on social entrepreneurship. She has also organized several business events in Germany, including masterclasses and venture capital conferences in Zambia. Sensix Africa vision is to unlock the potential of African startups. She will be talking about that. And in 2020, she will be launching the UNIDO African chapter of Women in Leadership, her passion for empowering single mothers in Africa through mentoring, education, and capacity building. Thank you, Bibuza, for being here.
Thank you so much, Alpha. Thank you. I know you call me Bibi because we work a lot together. I'm honored to be in this extraordinary panel. I'm really looking forward to learn more from the ladies here. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. So Alpha, do you want to start with the question?
Yes, my first question actually will go to Bibuza, and this is a very simple question. What is, Sensix has been working over the past decade with women in Eastern and Southern Africa. What is the profile of a female business leader in that part of Africa?
Okay, so I think most of us know that, you know, as women, we've been having challenges the last decade, but previously in the last 5 years, I think women have been voicing out. So in Africa, the various sectors that actually have got women that are rising on top. I'll give a few examples so that we can all relate to what kind of sectors they are. So for example, I'll start with my country, Zambia. We have in banking, we have Mizinga Melu, who's the Chief Executive Officer for, which was Barclays Bank, is now Absa Bank. She also sits on the UN for Women Initiative Board, and she's worked in various banking institutions. And then we also have in IT, technology, Jerry Riong. I'm sure most of you know her. She started off by selling yogurt, you know, and then clothes. And she owns one of the largest incubators in Kenya, actually, and a digital marketing agency. We have also from Nigeria, Bola Shagaya, who actually has an oil conglomerate. She's also into banking, communication. So she's in various sectors in Nigeria, but she's quite well respected. So in retrospect, I think the women are rising more in the areas or more male-dominated sectors like banking, like manufacturing, like mining. For example, we have Brigetra Dabe in South Africa, who was the first female owner of a mine. And they obviously have other sectors within the mine to support the community. From Uganda, we have Julian, who's been helping children to get an education through her business. So literal sense, when we try to place them up with the, you know, with the profiling of women, I think banking, mining, agri-tech, and microfinance is the booming sector for women in leadership.
And those sectors are very high also. They are demanding in terms of technology and innovations, right?
Yes, so definitely. I will give an example of the banking sector. Right now, it's been very difficult, obviously, when we talk about finance. And in this instance, we talk about women getting finance to grow their businesses. It's been quite of a challenge. But, you know, now that we're in the 4.1 revolution digital, even a woman in the market has got a mobile phone. So what this bank, for example, Zanaco Bank has done, they've opened what they call village banking, which is specifically for women. So women have then access to the, you know, it's not coding or anything so complicated, but they are actually using technology such as tools like mobile money to either borrow money to grow their businesses, or in this instance, village banking, where a group of women are on an app and they borrow money, which then the, obviously pay back with very little interest, which has been a challenge for women growing into business. So the area of technology is actually amazing at how women are getting integrated in using tech to grow their businesses, and even for educational purposes, because one of the things my company is doing is now because of COVID, we've gone into the reset phase, right? So we can't hold workshops. And this is why technology is holding such an important impact in getting people or women in this instance to continue learning about how to grow their businesses. And that's why tech has been a huge, huge, huge impact in women's businesses in obviously Southern Africa and Eastern Africa.
Thank you. Heba?
Yeah, I'm very excited already about Bebuza's input because it's very optimistic to see how much is being contributed, and having women in leadership in Africa is obviously and clearly a big advantage for development and innovation. I would love to ask Lubomila about how, so you're concerned about developing AI technologies and a SaaS platform for carbon compensation. And the question is, what are the challenges you're facing to achieve the SDGs, and how are you tackling them? And maybe also to be and stay positive, how many opportunities, or what are the opportunities you see by being concerned about sustainable development in your work?
Thank you so much for the wonderful question, and Bibusa for the great insights. There's a lot of challenges in building a company. I would say there's even more so if you are a woman in tech. I can speak a lot about the optimism that the last few years have brought, specifically with a lot of new initiatives that have been set up. But to go into the specifics of my own company, so we are building, as you mentioned, AI-driven software as a service platform that helps companies reduce their emissions and monitor them continuously. One of the main challenges is that up until last year, the topic of sustainability was still somewhat exotic for many people. Maybe not for us that are sitting here on the table, but that was not necessarily on everyone's minds when it comes to companies, and especially the big corporates with their own commitments. This has changed, but obviously COVID has also added a challenge in terms of the adoption, especially for smaller companies, and how they perceive the opportunity of becoming more sustainable and the long-term benefits of being sustainable in terms of cost savings, in terms of actually reducing your negative impact on the planet. That has been definitely one of the challenges. The second challenge that I would like to mention has been the aspect of education with regards to the topic. So sustainability is maybe on many people's minds, but for someone to adopt a product like ours, it requires a deeper understanding of the necessity of this product, but also of how the whole calculation is done. How does this whole process work? And we have done our best to embed this into the experience of the website, but the whole society is not at the level where science is, where many experts are for this technology to be super quickly adopted. And a final challenge, because the topic of the event is related to women in technology, I would like to mention is that building a company as a woman co-founder is, I would say, so especially when you're in the CEO position, is somewhat hindered by access to financing. To finish on a positive note, because I know this is how we want to be talking about the topic, there's been incredible initiatives across Germany and Europe that I can speak of that have helped a lot, but I would say the road is a bit more rough than other, I would say.
And do you have any experience globally when you think about scaling up your product and being active beyond Europe? Do you already have some experience in that? Can you share with us I think we'll have a great conversation afterwards with Bibuza also about the scalability of technologies, software and hardware. So maybe you can start with giving us insights about your experience.
The go-to-market strategy when it comes to, for example, Asia and Africa is very different than the one when it comes to Europe. In Europe, it's really kind of using the typical tactics of marketing and then connecting to maybe some local stakeholders that would be community enablers, ecosystem connectors. What we learned in Asia and also in a few other places, because now we're looking into Kenya in particular for our product, and Nigeria, has been that you really need to have people on the ground that can give you an insight also to the regulatory framework and also give you an insight to what has pushed some companies to think about environmental and sustainability metrics and topics.
And going to Alison maybe here, because we're moving now a little bit from software heavy to more hardware based startups. What are the challenges you're facing in scaling up hardware based business models? And we talked yesterday about disruption and how to keep up with disruption, having a material development with all what it takes to keep a material cutting edge and the development around it and the piloting and all of that. So can you tell us a little bit more about your own experience too?
Sure. Yes, I'd like to start first by saying that the material itself, I just want to explain a little bit about what we're doing, because I do have the benefit of having something tangible I can hold in my hand on a video call. So I'm going to use that advantage. We're making carbon negative materials that look a bit like this. They can also look a bit like this. So we're forming these from pellets. And just to explain, to take the complexity out of the discussion, what carbon negative means is that we're able to take more CO2 out of the atmosphere than we emit in making the materials. So by the time we form products, they are reversing climate change. And this is a really powerful thing that we're trying to link to consumer demand. I just wanted to start with that because I think then it starts to frame why we go from climate change into manufacturing, which are two industries that are not necessarily ever joined. And I think that's, to talk about this today is kind of refreshing because hardware, I mean, running a hardware startup is full of challenges. It's a minefield of lots of conversations, lots of partnerships, a supply chain. And I think the approach that we have at Made Aware to this is we're coming from the market. And that's how we see our ability to achieve our goals, is to take the demand, to stay with a vision that we want to reverse climate change. And we like to have that as a home. And then we have to go obviously into the channels on the ground. And when we get into those channels, these are industrial channels that are full of know-how, they're full of equipment, they're shaped culturally. So they've worked for a long time in a kind of bubble. And I think when we enter that space, they're not ready for disruption. So how we get in there is we have to bring a bit our vision, we've got to bring our demand, and we've got to make those industries economic winners with climate change. And that's a big challenge because a lot of the times the partnerships that we're making, they don't care about environmentalism. They don't, they think it's maybe a clever thing that we're trying to do, but they need to have buy-in through economics. They need to have buy-in through market demand. We need to be able to create new markets for their machinery and their manufacturing capabilities. And so those challenges are really where we leave the vision behind. And that's a bit of a hard thing to do, but it's a very practical conversation that we have to have on the ground. And I think some of the other things that we're looking at are being able to connect some of those industries. That's also a challenge, is we have a supply chain where we're dealing with like raw materials on one end, we're dealing with the wood industry, we deal with the plastics industry, We deal with compounding equipment. We go all the way up into carbon credits. We go back down to biochar. We're dealing with labs. We work with Fraunhofer Institute, for example. So we are becoming a kind of node for a lot of those industries to link up. And some of them have just never been part of this kind of supply chain before. So a lot of our challenges are to try to make those industries speak the same language and to make sure that we're all on the same page when it comes to connecting it back to a bigger vision. But we're working on that. I think one other thing that I would say is that when we work in materials, and this is even a little bit of a subset from hardware, we are dealing with commodities as well. And so on one hand, where we're talking about a material that can reverse climate change, we're in kind of blue sky thinking. We spend a lot of time with vision and impact, and we want to be able to measure it. And on the other side, we're dealing with raw materials, and in commodities, it's a race to the bottom. So we try to take a global challenge, like we have in climate change, and connect it back to that very specific, sometimes regional commodity problem of being cheap. So this is a big struggle that we have. I think the way that we overcome it is we just keep coming from the market side. We keep coming from climate science, and we keep asking that our materials reach individuals. And one of the great things that we have, one of our advantages, is we can put a material in an individual's hand and connect them to it that way.
And that's a very interesting way to put it together, because we're actually trying, we're very concerned about sustainability to be in the core of development and industries. And in the BMW Foundation, we are very concerned about the mindset of responsible leadership and how being an entrepreneur or someone in a position of responsibility to take care of the whole complex situation and not being only concerned about your own profit or benefit, but just like look at the holistic approach. And Alpha, yesterday we've been talking about our own experiences between MENA and Europe and Africa. I faced myself in my previous experience a lot of challenges in terms of technology transfer and how much capacity building is needed on the grounds in case you are transferring technologies and using technologies, adapting them to MENA or in African countries, and otherwise what is needed in order to scale up good solutions coming from African countries or MENA. So maybe you can tell us more about this from your perspective, and Bibuza can also tell us about what's needed. She mentioned from mining to fintech, which is quite a broad range of technologies and development. What needs to be done? How can we tackle it to be actively doing something good?
Absolutely, I was so amazed to actually to notice, because I'm coming. You know, part of my job is to go through lots of technology and innovations on the continent, and to advise my colleagues on it. In the MENA region, you can actually come across with extraordinary handicraft linked with IoT, for instance. It's amazing how you can see people mingling around this. We have now in Rwanda the first African brand of telephone. Of telephone brands. Africa is the continent where we will have in 2020, this year, 720 million devices around there. So, the move to hardware companies for telephone manufacturing, tablet manufacturing, laptop manufacturing is quite an interesting thing. Hardware in general is something actually that you can see in South Africa. You can see it in the eastern part of the continent. Bibuza, I know you are behind a venture capital structure, and you often talk about it, and which means you are behind a vehicle that actually come across with various activities in terms of technology, but also in terms of agrotech. You talked about lots of different things. When you are behind that vehicle, when you are behind the wheel, what do you see? How do you see those women, those female entrepreneurs working responsibly, environmentally responsibly, into building their companies and into building and to putting together their companies. You are mute.
Yes.
You are mute.
I think I'll start with in black and white, the main challenge that, you know, in Africa as a whole we have is access to education. And I'll say this because, for example, where I come from, there are a lot of young girls that want to go into AI, into STEM basically, but they have such kind of like a stereotype from, you know, from the policies that are made, and that actually doesn't help them to achieve the goals that they want. So I predominantly chose venture capital, which is more like my focus of every time when I have master classes. Because we as women or as business women, when we think of finance, especially in Africa, we think of the first thing, go to the bank, borrow money. Do you understand? And what I'm trying to do, or what my company is trying to do, is to interlink women, create ecosystems, which is very important. I was having a conversation, sorry, with a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago when the whole COVID hit us. And I said, do you know why SDGs are important? Like, this is how I feel sustainability is really important. Imagine if you had a business where you know it's sustainable. So even if COVID comes on, you do have a plan to have your business that can run, of course, not at the same level, but obviously will sustain itself despite the situation. Now, when you talk about fintech and venture capital and the language of the women, it's it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. Very simple things, you know, in a simple layman's language for the participants, obviously, that are not, you know, into finance or into technology. For example, walking into a boardroom with a perfect grant proposal for a microfinance or tech or agri-tech, right, project. First of all, they will see, but she's a woman. How is she going to be able to run XYZ, right? If we give her $100,000, in paper, it looks okay, but we don't think as a woman should be able to run the business. And I think that's why we as women have become more aggressive in, you know, getting to go on the forefront of industries such as technology, or using technology to be used in our businesses. Because the moment I say, okay, right, I'm going to have a masterclass on venture capital, and one of the masterclasses I'm going to have is how women are going to use technology. For example, cyber security, cyber cafes, AIs, how my venture capital fund, right, will be integrated with another woman-owned business that is going to develop an app for other women entrepreneurs to interlink and grow the businesses. So it's a challenge.
Bibuza, I'm just jumping into it and bringing to you a question from the audience. And I think that's an important thing, part of it. You mentioned that some of these women, you know, working on highly skills demanding areas. Do you see any collaboration with you know, high-tech, very high-tech profile companies like Allison's or something like that in Africa? Do you see a partnership with, you know, women-driven companies in Africa and international companies?
Of course. I will give you a very, very good example of Africa Green Tech. I'm actually one of the project managers there. It's, you know, well, the woman is Aida Schreiber from Mali. So in the diaspora region, and they've built solar containers for Mali, okay? So what they've done in the beginning, it was just a container providing electricity. And now because of innovation, and you know, the world of technology is so huge, it's amazing. What they've actually done is on the container, they are now providing electricity, they're providing water, and now they're providing internet. So the villages around can have access to internet and build their businesses in such a way. And this is one of also the challenges for the women in Africa. They want to grow their business, but they want also to be partnered with people such as Allison, such as Ludmila. So they're thinking literally outside the box of how they integrate For example, if I tell like an ordinary African woman about what Alison is doing, they'll be like, oh my God, is there really such a thing? Do you understand? And Heba is laughing.
Yeah, no, because I know it. I really can totally feel and know that this is a fact. And actually, I really think it's a great thing to have startups and young entrepreneurs collaborating together on this cross borders level, because of course corporates are cooperating and doing a lot of like transforming technologies and transition, but there's also a lot of opinions saying we missed the whole industrial revolution in our countries in Africa, and I'm Egyptian myself, so I'm very much feeling with you, Bibuza, and that we should only focus on software and industry 4.0 and on the digital revolution and transformation. Right. But actually, I would love to go, and this is also actually a question from the audience, knowing the optimism of how an Alison or the Bumila startup can bring together a lot of energies and be on an ecosystem level globally active. If you think tomorrow of scaling up in Africa, Alison and Lubumila, I'll start with Alison. What do you think is your challenge? What would you need to start being active there?
That's such a great proposal. I mean, after hearing what Bibusa has to say, I'm up for it. Let's go. I mean, obviously, I think it's. I think anytime we switch locations and economic zones, we have a lot to learn. And what I do is full of learning. I mean, I can't tell you like the cycle of knowledge that we've had to go through to be able to do what we're doing. And what I like to do, our whole approach is to just keep partnering with people who know and keep the vision central and work with people on the ground and hear what they have to say. And I think entering a place like Africa, I would be full of questions. I would want to know, I mean, speaking from a hardware perspective, I would need to know how industry works there, and culturally as well, because I think we have to be able to work with people on the ground and what they've built already and be able to bring, you know, I've always said like innovation is just diversity. It's all about bringing diverse ideas, putting diverse people together and seeing the best that can come out of that. And I mean, for us, like I said before, we work with local challenges. We work for a global problem. So relocating it, for me, there's only advantages in that. And I think for us also we're trying to create a new resource in the end for manufacturing. And I think the story with Africa is that those resources are going to go there. I think the urbanization that we're going to face before 2050 is going to happen sometimes at 800% in African cities. So, I mean, we are very realistic. We're sitting in Europe right now. We're developing a material that we're selling to Europe because we're doing what we know how to do. But we're realistic in knowing that by 2050, those materials need to be developed next to the places where they're needed to be implemented. So we don't want to see global traffic and shipping and making something in one place and sending to the other. We need to see that those regions are starting to do that autonomously. And that's also part of our vision is that this travels that way, kind of into those ecosystems.
Before going to Lubomila and onto that, of course, investment and finding investors who are interested and are willing to invest in African countries and in scalability, because it's a concern, it's a global challenge and we need to tackle it, like Alison's saying, on a global level. However, we are then splitting what is exciting investment and interesting investment and what's not. So this is a big issue. I think we need a whole session about how to find actually global thinking climate investments that we know what's being produced here is being used here, and it's a cycle. The SDGs show the production and consumption circles, and we need to be concerned about the whole process. So this is a big topic. I'm not sure if you're going to cover it here. There are a lot of questions about it. Lubomila, what do you think is the difference when you think about scaling up and transferring and cooperating and merging ecosystems from Europe and Africa?
It's a fantastic question, and in the same line of thought as Alison, I'm fully thinking that the ideas and the concepts that are now being discussed have to be considered also for on a global level. What Alison is building, what I'm building is applicable to a global audience, and we, at least in Plan A, have the benefit, I guess, of online distribution, which makes it a lot easier. For us, how we imagine scaling and how we envision it, our main goal in KPI is carbon reduction. Carbon reduction is unfortunately a phenomenon that is, well, twisting it into the opposite way. Carbon creation is a phenomenon that is available across the whole world, and educating people on how they can reduce their emissions is something that can benefit a lot of people. So how we see our way of applying our product internationally is essentially to look into the local communities, connect with people like Bibusa and Alpha, and find different ways to be perfectly aligned in terms of product offering to what the ambitions of the communities are, so that essentially if maybe water is a topic that is of main importance, if maybe sustainable or like healthy consumption is of importance, then the product is adapted according to the needs that maybe are not the same in different geographies. I think I liked, and I know that this is definitely a new panel itself, but I liked your thought, Heba, on how we need to start thinking in terms of what does a product stand for on a global level, and what its capabilities of impacting positively the whole population of this planet, rather than maybe the business opportunity within one geography that is limited by borders that, if we look at the topic, for example, of climate change, is totally irrelevant, because climate change is not happening only in Germany, it's happening all across the world. It just has different faces. I think there's already a few successful examples that are tackling these ideas and are not limiting their ambitions to geography. And we just need to start amplifying their focus, and also giving them more of an opportunity for them to understand also that there's innovation from all across the world that maybe is applicable to their business model, that focuses on global issues rather than only on European ones.
Another question from the audience is asking, from your experience, and this is maybe for also for Lubomila, what's your experiences getting in, or typing into green finance to ease all these things?
Do you mean how easy it is to access financing, or you and yeah?
The startup to have access to green and climate finance, especially to focus on government and non-government on meeting the international climate goals.
Yeah, so a few months ago, we set up an initiative called the Green Tech Alliance, which now connects green tech startups from all around the world, including from Africa. We have members from Nigeria, from Kenya, and the idea is that we connect these green tech companies to 200 advisors that focus on not only financing, but media, SEO, of any kind of challenges that a startup would have, they could be essentially solved within this community. And I am gonna speak to both of you in terms of scaling up in Africa, because we definitely have less members there. What we notice in terms of Europe, in terms of finance, so what we notice in terms of the startups themselves is that the biggest challenge is related to having a sustainable and solid sales channel and developing it. And then the second aspect is financing, being able to scale your company based on this amazing idea on traction that you might have had. Companies from the green tech field are definitely challenged by little access to financing, and less so than any traditional tech company. And I would say even in Europe, the success of this is not necessarily really visible, because the venture capital funds are yet to develop an investment thesis on the topic. So yeah, happy to elaborate further outside of this format, but it's really challenging, I would say, for anyone that is within the sphere of green tech.
I think I can add on, if I'm allowed to.
Of course.
on the experience and channels. So because obviously climate change, as you know, you have all indicated, is not affecting only Germany, it's everywhere in the world. And I speak on the, I'm sorry, I keep on saying Africa because my business is predominantly there. So first of all, our government has taken a bit of time, much longer than the European governments, to literally understand the impact of climate change. And which is even more affecting us in Africa because of we need to decentralize deforestation because a lot of poor families rely on selling charcoal, and so you don't have trees, which is affecting. So the policies, the governments have actually changed policies that actually more positive in impacting the socio-economic aspects of the, you know, of the citizens that are affected by climate change, which was a huge barrier. And what, you know, most of the governments have actually done is they have created grants of funds to help to help the products or to help the entrepreneurs or, you know, the citizens go through the process. And one of the processes is to get them first to understand the you know, the process of education of what is climate change, what is it doing, and then get into giving them the solutions of how are we going to sustain ourselves and in the term lessen the disadvantages of climate change. And in the long run, for example, in Zambia, they've created a fund specifically to help women who are starting businesses such as green energy. And obviously what would be great is to interlink to people like Ludmila as well and see if that could be, I mean, it shouldn't be finance, but it should kind of relate to, you know, getting the African or the Zambian or Southern Africa businesses interlinked to be able to get the financial assistance that they need in terms of climate change and having sustainable goals for that.
Actually, Bibuza, this was exactly the point I would have loved as the next one, which is related to the power of networks and how to leverage each other and leverage the potential with networks. And actually, in our preparation call yesterday, came up. So I'll start a little bit earlier. I think we all, as women and female entrepreneurs and in power positions, we don't like the female-only conversations. We really like to have a diverse, inclusive conversation and not always tackle it from a very exclusive, but a very inclusive approach. Yeah. And now we are addressing the elephant in the room. We are talking about how many disadvantages or limitations, but we are also showing very positive examples of when you are not concerned about gender and having it in the focus, how much you could achieve actually. Yes. And like Lubomira said, and you said, how much potential is in inclusive and collective intelligence for the products, for the companies, for the sustainability and all of these issues. So let's highlight the power of networks. And there's also a question about mentorship and networks of mentorship. Do you have examples of experience of how support or like what forms of cooperation and networks and strengthening collaboration do you wish in order to have even more opportunities being a female entrepreneur? So it's a plus, it's not a trying to get out of a minus or something. Can you, each of you, tell us about the opportunities you see and how interested mentors from the audience could find points of attachment and contact, where to start?
Should I start or Alison?
Sure, I can jump in there, and I would just have to say that we are, at Metaver, we are also a member of the Green Tech Alliance, Ludmila's Green Tech Alliance, which I think it's brilliant. And I would say in terms of like, how do you build your network? Start there. If you have a green tech company, go look there, because I think it's full of resources and it's very joined up. And I haven't seen anything like that yet. So that's a great tip from this. And just on Heba's point about networks, I think it's, I mean, as we were talking about it yesterday, and I've been thinking about it a lot. And I think, I don't know if everyone feels the same way, but I've always been a bit suspicious of female-only networks. And I think my suspicion comes from the fact that there may not be the impact there that's happening somewhere else. And I think networks obviously thrive on being exclusive. So the point is that you're in this kind of special club, and the club tends to form based on same identities. And I think that that's what happens first. So maybe way back when I had these suspicions about female-only networks, I had to recognize for myself that when something starts, when a network starts, it is about like identifying with other people who believe the same as you or look the same as you. And then over time, those networks get layered. And as you bring diversity into that network, it becomes very strong and very powerful. And then the exclusivity is actually a great benefit. And just in my personal experience, I look for those networks. So I would say in terms of if you're just getting into this and as a woman and you want to build your business in whatever you're doing and you need mentorship, I think you have to really look for those diverse networks, in my opinion. That's really where and you have to be able to feed those networks too. It's a very give and take relationship. You have to be able to maintain it. You have to bring something to it. As well as rely on it. You can't just take from the network when you need something. So they're very interesting ecosystems, and I think that's in terms of being in a powerful one, diversity and layering it with experience, and then I think it can be very beneficial for women.
I think I will jump into your question. Because I do a lot of networking, and this is why events as such is such a great tool for women or youth to get kind of like a feel of, okay, now we know there is Made in Air, okay, we can have a conversation with Alison, because a lot of female or young entrepreneurs have kind of like a fear wall for them to approach people like you, Alison, to just ask basic questions. And this is why, our company, Sensex Africa, has actually worked with our business owners, male and female, and provided mentorship for the women entrepreneurs, because some of the entrepreneurs do not speak English, only speak French. So we kind of interlink them to not necessarily a network group, but we kind of have clusters for the women to be able to get some mentorship. But the thing is that what we just don't want to do is, for example, go to conferences and talk, yes, mentorship, and then nothing happens. We actually follow up and see, what have been the guidelines, what have been the business models, have you changed your business model? What kind of product do you have now? What kind of product did you have? And now because of COVID, a lot of products or business models have to be adapted to the whole situation. And so even when we get mentors, first of all, some people are not, they don't know that they can be a mentor. I think everyone can be a mentor as long as you have had a journey of some sort of business. And it's great because it's interlinked to technology, you see, because it's like, okay, I have a lady in Rwanda, she's in the rural area, she's, very passionate about climate change. How do I get to mentor that person? And so the interlink, which is technology, should be able to make that happen. Our company is open for people that want to provide mentorship, which is very critical. Even I have a mentor who, drives me and talks to me in different areas that I need to get things done for the women that also need mentors. So the networking is a huge topic. It's either through, the Green Tech Initiative, or could be just a one-on-one mentor, or could be through obviously other initiatives by, for example, Africa Trust Group, run by a friend of mine in South Africa, financing, but they provide mentorship. AI startups in Cape Town. So there are a lot of platforms to provide mentors.
But also just to come into a gentleman's comment in the audience, the continent is producing lots of female engineers, lots of female technical with strong technical background. Maybe it's time also to talk about trainings on business skills and putting together structures to, for business promoting and turning those engineers, super technical women that are produced by our universities into tech-based entrepreneurs.
Yes, of course. I mean, that's why one of the first challenges I said is education, the link to education from the child in the village to even, to be honest, people in the city. How do they get that kind of education that is relatively global? Do you understand? And I think it's also good that men are getting interested in the women conversation and want to be part of, okay, we have women that want to go into AI, into technology. How do we get to support the women? How do we get to empower them? But yes, the training and education is of vital importance, but also it actually also depends on the government policies, because the government need to be able to allow many more trainings that are not traditional, going to school, grade 1 to grade 12. Not everybody, to be honest, is an academic. And some people just need the specific training for the specific sector to thrive in their businesses. So that is a challenge. Education, policy, governments to help the entrepreneurs.
It's actually a very interesting point. You have to have further education. And I think it's a challenge in African countries, how you further educate engineers and professionals in order to fulfill the need of the state and of the companies and for further development. So there is a gap between graduates and being able to, in fact, being part of an innovative and startup or company, etc. So actually, this comment from the audience is a very good one, because it's our experience too. And actually, I would like to ask Lubomila, because there's a question on the role of men in this space. And of course, a lot of comments go in the direction of we need the support of men. Actually, I think they need our support. So how can we talk about it? What's your experience in when do men get in the room and when do they stay outside?
There's this iconic, I would call it, statistic from McKinsey that came out from the 2012 study about women's role in society, and it was basically saying that in order to get to the level of productivity that we need to get to by 2050, we need to empower half the women population, which shows enough how vital women are and how it's also a numbers game. Maybe if someone is having a critical analysis based on gender capabilities and skills, which obviously I would beg to differ about, still even the numbers prove that we need a lot more women involved in a lot of the industries that we work in. When it comes to women and men in the particular kind of, I would say in the tech sector, because I have a lot of experience in this one, the bias is still there, and there's a lot of work to be done in terms of making these boardrooms a bit, more diverse. I can only speak about how incredibly vital a community of diverse people is and what it means in terms of results that it leads to. I think many people are recognizing how amazing it is to actually have people with different perspectives, backgrounds, anything that would make them different from one another, how much it adds to the benefit of the final result of the project. And I think we need to fight these biases, exactly as mentioned earlier, by inviting men to the discussion and also building bridges rather than building communities that are specifically dedicated to women, or communities that are dedicated to women but do not invite men. My learning has been that we need to empower, and this is what I spent actually a lot of my time on, we need to empower new women joining the workforce, regardless if they're entrepreneurs, regardless if they are in management positions in corporate structures or just in the beginning of their journey, by telling them that they can raise their voice, they can express their opinion, that they have a lot of value to bring to the table, which I've seen quite systematically be a big challenge for many girls that I have had the opportunity to speak to. I think this is something we need to work on consistently. And even if it feels sometimes that women are kind of outspoken and have a lot of confidence, to further challenge this, because we need even more of that.
It's not even a disadvantage, right? Actually, also, I would like to encourage you to listen tomorrow to go to the session of the Gender Alliance about responsible leadership in industry at 5:15 CT. It's going to be very exciting, very powerful women talking about their businesses and their approach for a gender equal approach. And also, if you have any questions about entrepreneurship and innovation, we are there for you tomorrow at 6:30, the Respond team in a Q&A session. Please find us and come to us. I think it's been really inspiring, and we could talk forever. Alpha, do you want to close the session with a few words out of your perspective? Thank you, everyone, for being here. We can be very
Absolutely.
happy to have you.
We have all of you here, and we've been learning so much about what you're doing in terms of your entrepreneurial venture, but also what you see in terms of cooperation and partnership on that matter. But what also are the bottlenecks, the main actually constraints on women entrepreneurship, either in the Western area or in Africa. Thank you so much for your dedication. Thank you for your insight. We've learned so much. I was very pleased to be here and to share this stage with Heba, Alison, Bibusa, and Libimila. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And for anyone that is interested, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. I'm happy to chat. And Bibusa, Alpha, I'm coming back to you.
Yes,
I want to chat. I want to chat.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
It's been very inspiring. Thank you.